Hello and thanks for stopping by. This is Overblood for the Sony PlayStation, published by Electronic Arts and released in 1997. I seem to be doing a string of Resident Evil style games lately, and this is kind of a continuation of that, I suppose. I had a handful of Resident Evil style survival horror games that I purchased way back, and I just stored them for a bunch of years. This was one of the pile. Overblood is regarded as being the first survival horror game to utilize a fully 3D environment, and it has the basic trappings of a Sony PlayStation game of that era. First, the graphic models are really primitive compared to the models you'll see rendered in today's games. Actually, the models are primitive compared to some of the other survival games I've been playing from that era. The characters kind of look like action figures in the cinematics, and they're oddly shaped in some ways, and they're more plastic looking than I would have hoped. Also, when you see cinematics, they're not very detailed overall. I know detailed renderings take a lot of data, and the storage capacity on a PlayStation game disc was only the size of a CD. The size of PlayStation games were a huge advancement over the previous generation systems, of course, but when you're including video on a disc, it's going to eat up space. Your avatar looks weird in the cinematics. You look bulbous and have huge hands. Your character walks okay, but you look kind of awkward doing pretty much everything else in the game. They're just odd looking. So, this is a science fiction horror adventure game, and the first thing I noticed was the inability to skip the intro cutscene. If you die in the first puzzle area, you have to sit through the entire opening cinematic again. The controls are clunky, especially compared to today's games, and they're going to take some getting used to. You're going to likely get yourself stuck on things that you would not expect to get stuck on, like a corpse. You can't step over it, but you have to navigate around it. When you do try to walk around it, it might take you a few tries, because, well, it's definitely clunky. The L1 button shifts the perspective of the camera, and it's something you're going to have to learn to utilize to solve different puzzles in the game. The triangle button will make you crouch, and it's really weird to have that be the crouch button. If you crouch, you just do things that are sort of lower on the screen, and it's just a required mechanic for puzzles, but it's weird because the mechanic you use in today's games, it's usually used in shooters to dodge bullets. Crouching in this game, it just isn't an immediate mechanic like that, used to dodge anything. It's just used for you to look lower. It's kind of weird. If you hold the circle button and press the directional pad, you're going to run, and the square button will let you jump. Your cross is going to be the action button. The first puzzle in the game is a timed one. You wake up and you're having no memory of who you are or how you got there. Now, I think amnesia is a tired idea overall, but this video is 20 plus years after this game was first released. I think if I was reviewing the game way back then for a science fiction game, I'm guessing that having amnesia back then would have seemed more fresh, so I'm going to give this one a pass. You appear to have been in a suspended animation chamber of some sort, and the room you're in is below zero and you're slowly freezing to death. This is your timer. You need to survive the cold and get out of the room. Also, along the way, you manage to make friends with a robot. Now, I know this is considered a horror game online, but the manual doesn't really describe it as such. It's really a bit less horror and a bit more science fiction. This game has to do with cloning and stuff like that and viruses, so there are naturally going to be some creepy morality questions that the game is going to deal with along the way, but the sort of horror part really feels secondary to the science fiction part. The long and short of the story is this. You wake up with no memory, you're trapped in some sort of structure, there's no one around, and there are infected people running around. There's some virus, it seems. Now, you have no idea if you're in a laboratory, a spaceship, an experiment, or what time frame you're living in. The game is puzzle solving to sort of get all these pieces and put them together. You're going to pick up an audio recorder after a little while, which lets you save your spot. Use it right away. I was starting to feel invincible after a bit, and then when I died for the first time, I realized I didn't save and I lost a ton of effort. There's a lot of space in between the various rooms in this game, and the rooms are where you do things. This sort of puts you in a place where you're running around from area to area, going through hallways non-stop, just looking for one piece of a puzzle that you're missing. This back and forth running is a bit of a bore sometimes, but when you make it through to the next section and you do something right, it's kind of a relief. When you fall to your doom in this game, you also have a really great scream. Well, it's a terrifying scream, but you'll fall by poor jumping or just walking off a ledge or a walkway. The controls can be kind of rough here, so you need to pay attention. If you're having trouble walking in a straight line, You might want to shift perspective. That will help you orient the direction you're going. There aren't obvious things to pick up in this game. I know some other games will give you some sort of an indication on screen to let you know there's something there. Like Resident Evil, maybe there'll be a flicker on the edge of a desk or in the corner of the room. But here, you don't get those sort of indicators. You need to search a lot. If there's a computer terminal, you should search it. If there are multiple computer terminals in a room, you should search all of them. Is it a cabinet? Search it. Sometimes there's going to be stuff there that you really need. They also insert little movie sequences to watch as the game progresses. Sometimes it's fully rendered video, and other times you just lose control of your character and something happens on screen and unfolds in front of you. It's interesting to the story, but sometimes I wish you could skip these times to just move things along. Especially if you have to replay something you've already seen before. If you died and have to go through the area again, it's just boring to watch the same thing over and over. The voice acting in this game, I think it's okay at times, or at least it's better than some of the other games I've looked at lately. There's a little melodrama thrown in here that really stinks of the 90s. Some of it's laughable, but overall I think the voice acting, for the most part, it's okay. I like enough of the story so far. I mean, I'm a few hours in, and I've made it through a handful of the initial puzzles, and there's enough interesting going on here to make me want to figure out the rest of the story. It is slow running through all the hallways, and that's kind of tedious to go through, but it's not bad. It's interesting. Well, that's all I have today for Overblood for the PlayStation. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you on another video.